Good morning, everyone. It's good to see a lot of you here. I'm going to start off by showing you this screen. So this is Share. It doesn't look like it did 12 months ago, did it? This is one of the gallery views that Mike showed you earlier. And we've been doing a lot of work in Share, and that's what I'm here today to talk to you about. So I'm David Webster. I'm an Alfresco engineer, and I've been lucky enough to be with Alfresco now for about 2.5 years, working on their UI team. So I work on Share, looking after the JavaScript, the CSS, the HTML free market templates that bring it all together. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is what's changed in the last 12 months. What's new since 4.0. A lot of the stuff you may well have seen in 4.2. And so we're going to go through details of some of the dashlet updates that have been made. We're going to look at localization and what changes have happened there. And then the document library config extensions. And then move on to hybrid sync and go through that a little bit. And then give you a preview of what we're expecting to come up in the next version, and show you where you can go to get more information. And then at the end, hopefully if we've got time, I know we're running a little bit late, but we should have a chance for a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions about any of the features I've shown or anything else in Share, then that's a good opportunity to look at that. And yeah, so that's what we're going to look at today. Just so you're all clear on just what Share is. Share is the main interface to Alfresco. The statistic I heard yesterday was that 75% of all Alfresco installs use Share. So it's the main interface there, and it connects through to the repository using a REST API. And I think quite fundamentally, it's the same same web app that powers community, powers enterprise, and also the cloud. So all the features that you enjoy in community or enterprise editions, they're there in the cloud, and all the new features we're adding to the cloud, they will filter their way back through, if not immediately, then eventually into the enterprise and community versions as well, and as appropriate. But Share isn't just an application. As you all know, it's a platform. A lot of the people I've been speaking to here in Berlin, you've been taking Share and you've been extending it, you've been customizing it, and I think that's one of the best parts about Share. I was talking to Paul Hampton, our marketing director, about what his favorite feature of Share was, and he said without hesitation that it was its ability to be customized so that you guys can take it and mold it to your own specific use case, whether that's use cases that we've thought you might use it for, or use cases that didn't exist when we first wrote the software, or use cases we've just never even considered. The ability to take Share and mold it to those is really powerful. And that extensibility framework, we've not been standing still on that. A lot of the UI team have spent a lot of time working on that. I'm not going to touch on that too much. We're going to look at the document library extension points. But if you want to find out more about the extensibility, then stay in this room once I've finished, because Dave Draper is going to continue, and he's going to look at the extensibility. And then later on this afternoon, him and Eric are going to go through a live customization demo, which will be really good to see. So that's another one that's worth sticking around for. First feature I'm going to look at is the dashlet updates. We've been lucky in the last 6 months or so for the UI team to be expanding. So there's now 6 of us in the team, and that gives us more flexibility to work on new features alongside fixing the bugs and the incremental enhancements that you're all you're all quite eager to get in there. So yeah, Tuna and Jamie have come on board in the last 6 months, and one of the first things we got them to do is a way for them to learn Share and get on top of what actually Share's all about, is to start on writing some new dashlets. So the first dashlet Tuna worked on was the site search. So this is available now in Community, and it enables you to quickly perform a search from your dashboard. So it's either on the site dashboard or it's actually on the user dashboard as well. So you can quickly search for content using that, and then link straight through to the document details page and all that stuff that you would come to expect. And next up, we've got Saved Search, which is similar, except that you can actually take a search and save it. So every time you go to the dashboard, you get the same search back. So that's really useful if you've got some documents you want to report on, some specific areas that you want to show what's been changing there. So you can use that for doing that. And then next up, we've got the discussion forum dashlet. One of the complaints that we've heard about the discussion area or component within Share is that there's not a lot of visibility on when things change and when updates are there. So with this new dashlet, it's really a good way of just putting some exposure on new updates, new posts, new replies to topics. And you can actually create a topic right there on your dashboard, and you can see when people have replied to your topics. You can filter them based on the time period you want to look at and other things like that. So that's another good dashlet. That's one that Jamie added. And then we've got the image preview. It's an existing dashlet that's seen a bit of love and attention, and the layout's been updated, so you might be able to see some drop shadows in the back of that. And I think most importantly, you can also specify a folder now for that image preview, or those images to come from. Whereas previously you were limited to just the images in the whole of the document library. Now it gives you a preview from a specific folder. So that's a lot more useful now for actually sites with image content that you want to display on the dashboard. And then next up, we've got the My Tasks dashlet. So again, this is just a better way of visualizing and surfacing data that's already available in Share, but in a more convenient place on the dashlet. And so this enables you to do things like filtering and paging, and so you can see completed tasks here. I know that was a feature that was requested quite a bit. So that's another improved dashlet. And then content I'm editing. So we're always looking for small ways to improve the performance of Share and make it faster and make it scale better. And there have been quite a few improvements in 4.2 and 4.1 from a performance point of view. And this is just one small area. With the content I'm editing dashlet, now instead of it blocking rendering of the page while it goes and fetches that list of all the content, that's now loaded asynchronously into the browser, so that you get the dashboard loaded and then you get the content. So that's just another small incremental performance update that we've added. So those are the dashlets that I'm going to look at. And now moving on to localization. So Share is now available in 9 supported languages. I won't read them all out. You can see the flags up there. But one of the things I like about working for Alfresco is that it's a global company, and we've really been able to leverage that to getting these translations made. We use external translators to do the actual bulk of the translations, but all the languages are reviewed by partners or employees who have the specific language as their native language and are able to review those translations in context with their Alfresco knowledge, so that the translations are of high quality and are actually useful out there to people who are doing that. And it can be surprisingly quick to get the translations done. So it can be that when I get a new string committed to SVN, Gloria fires off a bundle and sends it off to the translators, and then it can be a couple of hours later we've got translated in all the languages and committed back in. So I think that's a really good thing. And while we're looking at localization, a couple of statistics for you. We've got 9,000 strings in the UI that we translate, spread over 400 files. And with these latest languages that we've added into 4.2, if my maths are right, and I may be slightly off because I've got my figures from Wikipedia, but I think that we've now got share available to 2.2 billion people in their native language. So that's about a third of the world's population. So I think that's quite impressive. But we haven't stopped there. We're looking at adding Norwegian. That's with the translators at the moment, and we'll get that out, hopefully for the 4.2 release. And just as soon as we're happy with the quality on that. And there are other new languages, a lot of Southeast Asian languages, I think, in the pipeline. But one of the questions I've seen come up time and time again is cloud. Where are the translations for the cloud? Well, that's something I've been pushing internally, and I'm pleased to say that it's now very nearly happening. We're doing a lot of development work on that at the moment, and there's a couple of features we want to put in first before we release those. And that screenshot at the bottom there is one of those features, and that's just basically enabling the user to specify what their language is. So currently in Share, we choose the language that the browser's in. And if you're using a different browser or you want to view content in a different language or something like that, it's not trivial to do so. But this new feature will enable users to have more fine-grained control over their language settings. And we're hoping to add time zone to that as well. And as an example of just how that development's happening at the moment, when I did this presentation in Berlin, that screenshot was a wireframe. So that feature has been implemented in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully, very soon now, we'll be able to release all our supported languages into the cloud. And if any of you have a pet language or a specific customer need for a language that we're not supporting, there are lots of ways you can get involved. There's the Alfresco add-on site, where you can download languages that other people have submitted. And if there's no language there or you want to improve on that translation, Crowdin, I'm told that's the best place for collaborating on software translations. And if you've got any questions, then the forums are always a good place to go for that. So that's the localization looked at. Now, I'm going to move on to the document library configuration extensions. So basically, as you know, there's a lot you can do in the document library through just XML config. And when we add new features, we try and use that config to add those features. And if we run up to limitations on that configuration, then we extend it, and we try and do so in a way that's going to be useful for you guys when you're creating extensions. And something that would really help us improve on that is if you find you want to do something in the document library and you can't do it through config or the existing extension points, let us know, raise a Jira ticket, send us an email or something, and then we can see what we can do to improve that experience for you. And so there's 4 areas I'm going to touch on today. We've got the create content menu. We've got the multi-item select drop-down, where you can perform actions on multiple content items. And then we've got the indicators, and we've got the document filters on the left-hand side there. So first up's the create content menu. And what we've actually done here is we've added that new parameter that's in bold in that code there. And that was added for the Google Docs integration. And basically, it tries to bring it more in line with some of the actions config you can do. Because previously, in this menu, you could only trigger a page link. So if you wanted to create some content, it had to be on a different page. And with this extension, you can now trigger a JavaScript method. So that's that one in black text there as parameter names function. So that's a function that's available on the page, and that gets triggered when the multi-item select happens. So that's a good extension point. And as I say, that came out of the Google Docs integration. And next up is the content filters. So these are a really good way of viewing content in the document library outside of the folder hierarchy. And so if you want to see all your favorites or all content that's been synced, then filter's the way to do that. And previously, either the filter was there or it wasn't there. There was nothing built in out the box for turning these filters on or off. And something I needed to add for the hybrid sync when I was working on that was an evaluator. So if sync is turned off for your Alfresco repo, then you don't need to see the synced filters. So something small, but hopefully that evaluator is going to be quite powerful. And that's basically just a JavaScript statement that gets eval'd on the server side before the page gets rendered. So that should hopefully be quite useful. And the next feature was also added for hybrid sync. So Mike's demo that he did earlier showed you the indicator icons. And they're a really good way of just kind of informing the user of the state of the node or about certain metadata. So in this example, we've got an image with geographic data and EXIF information. And at the bottom there, it's the cloud icon indicates it's synced. And there's a lot more information that we want to give the user about that sync. So what we've done now is we've made those indicator icons interactive, so the user can click on them and get more information about that indicator. And in the case of the synced content, that displays the sync status dialog that you'll see in a later screenshot. And yeah, so you just add that action attribute, and that triggers off a JavaScript event. So you can hook into that to do lots of things, I'm sure. And next up, the last document library config extension I'm going to look at is the multi-select action evaluators. Now, something I get asked quite frequently is, why are these different to the node level action evaluators? And it's because primarily it's because they're evaluated on the client side as the user goes through selecting individual documents. We need to update that list in real time so that the user's not shown any actions that aren't relevant for those nodes that are selected. And something you can now do with this update is you can choose that, or you can say in the config that certain actions are only applicable for nodes with specific aspects. Or you can say if a node hasn't got an aspect, then it can have this action performed on it. And that's what we use for triggering the syncing action. So, for example, you can't sync a node that's already been synced. So if it's got the sync set member node aspect, then we don't show the sync action. So it's quite simple, but again, hopefully that's going to be quite a useful extension. And then next up's hybrid sync. This is something that I've been involved with for quite a bit of the last year, and it's actually the most fun project I've been involved with Alfresco. It's quite a tricky one, and I remember being sat in a meeting right at the start of it. A few of us engineers around, having just been told by product management, this is what we would like. Sitting down thinking, it's quite a hard problem. How are we going to do this?
Just a quick question. Are these features that we're seeing available in the enterprise version, or are these? Hello? Are these features that you're showing us available in the enterprise version, or are these only for the community at this moment?
At the moment, a lot of these features are in the 4.2 release that we've done for community. Hybrid sync itself is in 4.1, so that's an enterprise release. But a lot of the other dashboards will go into the 4.2 enterprise release. So if anyone else has any questions, then I'll take them at the end, if that's okay. So, but yeah, so coming back to hybrid sync, yeah, we basically had it was a good project to work on. There were some ups and downs, but I think that in the end we've got a good product out there that works well, and hopefully, as the two Johns were saying this morning, that whole hybrid connectivity, I think, is really key to Alfresco going forward. And basically, the first place you're going to see that hybrid connectivity is with the new UI actions. So if you fire up a 4.1 enterprise version and you've got the sync enabled, you'll see this new sync to cloud action. And I'll just talk you through the workflow of what happens as a user when you want to sync a document. So you select the document, you click sync to cloud, and then you get prompted for your user credentials. These are stored in a new encrypted remote credential store that we added for 4.1. And that remote credential store was designed so it can take credentials for any other remote services as well. So if you're connecting with other third parties and you want to use that, then that's available in the services. But from a user's point of view, you enter your credentials here, they get saved. And if you want to update them, you can then do so on the user profile page. So you can keep them up to date. And I think it's important to understand that all sync actions that happen when you're syncing content happen as this user whose credentials you enter there. So if you sync a document on the cloud and user Joe updates that but you've set up the sync with David's credentials, then the updated, and the person who's seen on the premise as having updated that is David. So it's all the sync actions happen as this user whose credentials you enter here. And then once you've entered your credentials and you're successfully connected, this folder picker dialog enables you to select a network, a site, and a location within the site to sync your content to. You've got the option of creating the folder if the target folder doesn't exist, or you want a new one in a different location. You can do that through this dialog. And so the aim is just to really make it nice and simple and quick to set up this sync so that you don't need to log into the cloud, set stuff up, and then come back and log back into your enterprise version on-premise and set the sync up. You can do it all through the enterprise version on-premise. And what you've also got here is the option of locking the on-premise content. And what that does is that prevents anyone using the on-premise Alfresco install from modifying that content. So it's designed for situations where you're using the cloud as the collaboration environment. So all the changes that happen to the document happen in the cloud. And then that just gets synced back to premise to your system of record locally for that. And yeah, so you've got the option of working that way or keeping the file unlocked, which is the default. So collaboration can happen in both environments, and the sync, so a two-way sync. And then once you've got the sync successfully set up, this is the sync status dialog that I mentioned earlier, and that's triggered from the, or you can either see it on the document details page or on the in the document library using the new interactive indicators, and that tells you information about when it was synced, if there are any errors, any problems that happened during the sync, if, say, your password's changed or your on-premise installs lost network connectivity or and can't push up to the cloud, then that's where this information will be displayed. And what you can also do here that's really useful is, especially if you're not the person who synced this document, you may know that it exists in the cloud. You will be told that by the indicator, but you don't know where. So you can find that out from here and actually use that link to go straight to the version in the cloud and actually see it on the cloud there. And then once you've finished collaborating and you want to clean up that content, you want to make sure that stuff doesn't get left outside the firewall once it serves its purpose and it's ready to come back into the enterprise, then you can remove the sync, and you've got the option there of deleting that content from the cloud instance, and that is just an option if you want to remove the sync and just leave that node in the cloud. You can do that as well. So hopefully that's a flexible sync workflow for you guys to take for your use cases, and actually, yeah, just make use of. And I'm quite excited to see what people are actually going to do with it and how it's going to be used in the real world. So if you've got any feedback on it, then I'd be keen to hear that, as would any of the other developers that worked on it. I've not had a chance today to go through everything that's changed in Share. There's been a lot of updates. There's been more since I put this slide together. So things like that light theme that Mike demoed That didn't exist when I first put these slides together. So we're constantly working on Share, and now the 6 of us, the pace of change is quite quick. I don't envy you guys having to try and keep up with what's changed, because it's hard enough even for me within the team to keep up. But hopefully we're going to keep logging and keep putting information out there, so you can find out what's changed, and it's all in the release notes and such like. And now changing tact slightly and looking to the future, so stuff we've not yet implemented, but we're going to. There's the, if you were in Mike's session this morning, he was showing you some of the document library views, and I think they're one of the most exciting areas that's changing in Share at the moment. It's kind of giving you a new window on your content, and yeah, I think that's really good. So if you want to find out more about what's happening in that area, then go along to Ray Gauss's talk later today and find out about that. Mike also touched on the property groups that I think are initially going to be added to the cloud version. So that's a simplified custom model. And the plan is that with the configurable document library views and the ability to add your own property groups and start getting some simplified modeling in there, that you can actually start to build applications on top of the cloud instance. So you can make that a lot more configurable. Some of you may have seen the blog post that Ixus did about the faceted search. They've contributed that code, so we're going to try and roll that into 4.2 as well. And just a quick show of hands, actually. How many people here are familiar with Jira, the software we use for tracking issues and getting enhancements? That's good. That's a large number of you. Great. So take a note of this number, the ALF 13803, because that's what we're using as kind of the bucket for Share enhancements that we want to go into 4.2. So if you've got anything that you would really like to see, make sure it's in Jira and try and get a link to that ticket. And that's just a really good way of you guys communicating to us what you would like to see in the product. So it's good to see so many of you familiar with that. There's also hybrid workflows, and what I'm going to show you next is the Share header refresh that we're looking on. So this is something that Linton and his team have spent quite a bit of time working on, and so we hope to kind of implement this in stages. And the first stage is going to be the header refresh. So that part at the top you see there with that black bar, that shifted logo, and what that actually, one of the kind of main aims that we want to achieve with this refresh is to give the content kind of more space on the page. So it, without removing any of the functionality of the current header bar, this new bar takes up less space and gives the focus back onto the content, because that's why people are using Share. It's to get to the content, to collaborate around that, to see that content. And this refresh will hopefully further that aim. I should say, though, that we've got that prototype sticker on the bottom, and things change. We've got quite an agile development environment, so things change from kind of one week to the next, so depending on different priorities. So it may not look exactly like this. Hopefully the design will evolve and improve, and we'll implement as much of it as we get time to do. And if you want any more information, then our developer blogs are they're the best way outside of these developer conferences for us to communicate directly with you guys in the community. So I know Dave Draper's quite a prolific blogger. He's got a lot of good stuff there, and that's that's the best place for documentation for stuff like the extensibility. But the rest of us blog too, so keep an eye on those blogs. And what we're hoping and what we're trying to do is feed all that documentation from the blogs into the official documentation, so that the official documentation remains a good source for finding out what's actually in each version. If you've not already done so, I encourage you to download the community version, the enterprise trial, and have a play with those, look at the new features. I'm sure you've all signed up for Alfresco in the cloud. If not, that's something else that you should be doing. And if you've got any questions outside of this session or any feedback, then contact me or any of the other developers. We're all on Twitter, and that's my email address there. And you've got the programs with the next sessions on. So I think Dave Draper's session next will be, it's essential if you're doing any share customization. And speaking to people, most people who use share do customize it, so I think that's quite an essential one. And then the dashlets and the document library views and the customization live as well, they're all good talks. So if you're interested in share, I think they're all in this room, so this is the place to be. But I think now we've got a bit of time for some questions. So if anyone's, if you just wait for the mic, then the recording will pick it up. So.
All right, so my question is the extension points that you went over on your slides.
Yep.
Are those, which version of Share are they available from?
They went into 4.1.
Okay. So
yeah, most of those are in 4.1.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
One thing I found when I started doing share development without the help of mostly you to do it for me was that I often found myself cutting and pasting large swathes of share config to override one very small part inside it. Are there any plans to make it easier to override just part without having to cut and paste a lot of the stuff around you don't want to change?
I think that's a good point. Thanks, Nick. I'm not sure there are plans to change that. I don't know. David, have you got any?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my next session. But I think specifically what you want, I don't think we'll have to do that.
So yeah, stick around and you'll find out the answer to that question fully. Another question down here, or at the back? I'll follow the mic.
Yeah, hi. I work for the federal government and like to use Share.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you're putting in 508 compliance compatibility into these new versions.
You're not the first person to ask me that today.
I'm sure.
And that's something we'd like to do. And what I encourage you to do is to talk to Mike Farman, who's got his hand up there. He sorts out the priorities on the development list. So if he prioritizes accessibility, then that's something that we do.
Yeah, I don't know whether, probably not in your session actually, Dave, but it is something that we're looking at. And actually, I'd like to talk to you in more detail about what you need, and I can go into these about our plans. But yes, it's a priority for us.
I'm pleased to see the enhancements to the taking actions on selected items in the document library. Any chance of selected items on search results and taking actions on those?
Yes, that's on the backlog. We're looking to enhance those search results so you can do a lot more stuff with that. And did you have anything to add to that, Mike?
I should probably have my own mic. So the views that I was showing in the demo this morning, what we're looking to do is provide those views in search results. So you issue a search and you could look at it in the the kind of spreadsheet view or the grid view and those kinds of things, and then all those operations would be available there as well. So that's on the backlog. Hopefully 4.2, I'm not sure, I can't guarantee it for 4.2, but that's certainly what we'd like to do.
Highlights of the search results.
The question was about highlighting search results, so kind of Google style, where you get the, so we are doing some work for faceted search, so the ability to drill down on search results based on metadata. That's using some capabilities that Solr provides. Solr also has term hit highlighting. And I know that we have partners who have implemented support for that. The challenge for us in doing that is that basically it means the index is much bigger, because the way you have to index to do the highlighting means that we have to have a whole set of capabilities. So we're looking at it. I don't think it's going to be a 4.2 thing, but it is something that we're looking at.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. This guy down here has been quite eager.
Just two short questions, they're not big ones. One is, when you do the synchronization from cloud, do you cater to versions and audit trails as well?
What we do is we version when we pull any changes back from the cloud. Yeah, we version, so we don't just override the local copy. So yeah, that's all. But what we don't do is, if there's been, say, there's been half a dozen changes to the cloud version, we don't pull back all of those changes. We just pull back the latest change. But with the sync window, I didn't mention it, but we pull content every 60 seconds or so. So
the last one, any enhancements on the roles, the 4 roles that we have? And
the roles?
The roles, like, the collaborator and the manager.
Oh, the roles.
Is there any enhancements in that
no,
area?
we've not done any enhancements around that permissions. But Mike had something to add.
So something that has changed, and this is actually live on the cloud and will be going into on-premise 4.2, is fine-grained permissions within the document library within share sites. So if you want to set permissions for specific groups or users over and above the 3 or 4 roles that we provide out the box, you will be able to do that. Again, if you want to see that now, it's on the cloud, live on the cloud, and we'll be going on to the on-premise.
Okay, thank you. And if anyone's got any questions we didn't have time to get to, then come and grab me or Mike or any of the other developers during the course of the DevCon, and we're pleased to talk to you about how you're using Share and what questions or issues you have about it. So thank you for your time today, and stick around for Dave Draper's session. Thank you.